They thought you'd beg. They thought you'd crawl back, apologize, shrink yourself, and wait by your phone hoping to be chosen again. They expected your silence to crack, your pride to collapse, your dignity to dissolve under the weight of loneliness. But what they didn't expect was your rise. What they never saw coming was your evolution. Let me ask you something real. Have you ever loved someone so deeply that you gave them all of you, your time, your trust, your truth, only for them to walk away like none of it mattered? And then, when things went silent, they didn't check in, they didn't reach out, they waited, not to fix it, but to see how fast you'd break. Because they weren't looking for reconciliation, they were testing your desperation. And that's where most people fold. That's when they beg. That's when they plead just to feel seen again. But not you, not this time. You're not here to beg for someone to see your worth. You're here to become someone who never has to explain it again. You see, the moment you choose self-respect over access, you become powerful. The moment you stop chasing love and start embodying it within yourself, you become magnetic. And the moment you stop performing for someone who never clapped for you in the first place, you stop living for their validation and start living for your peace. This isn't just about them. This is about you reclaiming everything they thought you'd give up just to be enough for them. So, if they expected you to fall apart, to crumble in silence, let your strength be the sound that breaks their expectations. Because you don't chase what walks away from your value. You replace it with growth, with discipline, with evolution, and that is what haunts them. Epictetus once said, "Freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control." They expected a reaction, but now you're responding with reinvention. Before we dive in, I want you to anchor your mindset with this. Drop this affirmation in the comments right now. If you're done begging for anyone's attention, I don't chase, I choose. Now let's talk about the 8 powerful things you must do when they expect you to beg, and exactly why each one turns the entire dynamic upside down. Number 1, choose distance, not drama. When they expect you to beg, they're expecting chaos, a reaction, a flood of messages, a late-night call, a tearful explanation. They want to see their absence disturb your peace. Why? Because if your world collapses without them, it feeds their ego. It confirms their illusion that they're still in control. So instead of begging, choose distance, not to punish, not to manipulate, but to protect your soul from the weight of disrespect. Psychologically, when someone expects you to chase and you do the opposite, it creates a disruption in their mental script. It triggers what's known as cognitive dissonance. Their mind can't reconcile why you're not doing what they expected, why you're not collapsing. And that discomfort? That's the beginning of their regret. Your silence will echo louder than any message ever could. When you choose distance, you are choosing your dignity. You are saying without words, I refuse to be where I am not valued. You're rewriting the narrative. You're letting your absence speak what your presence no longer needs to prove. And here's the truth most people don't realize. The most unforgettable people are the ones who walked away without making a scene. The ones who didn't slam the door, but simply disappeared into self-respect. Marcus Aurelius said, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." And in this case, your enemy is emotional chaos. Don't match it. Outgrow it. Let them think you're cold. Let them wonder what happened to the old version of you. Let them feel the weight of what they pushed away. Because that quiet strength, That refusal to beg is what plants the seed of their obsession. You don't need to scream your worth. Just leave. Your absence will do the explaining. Drop this affirmation in the comments if you're choosing peace over drama. My silence is strength. I choose distance over disrespect. Number 2, let your progress be the revenge. They expected you to beg, but instead you built, you grew, you leveled up in silence. And now, while they scroll through your absence trying to figure out why you never chased, they're watching a version of you that no longer fits inside their story. That's how you flip the script. Because nothing disarms someone more than your peace, your focus, your glow, not forced, not flexed, but real, the kind of progress that doesn't need to be posted to be powerful. It's in your energy, your discipline, your refusal to return to chaos just because it feels familiar. They wanted you to break, but you rebuilt. This is why psychological growth stings the ones who thought they'd broken you. People remember who you were when they mistreated you, and when you're no longer that version, they're left haunted by the gap they created. Let them feel that gap. Stoic philosophy reminds us through Seneca, "Throw me to the wolves, and I will return leading the pack." This isn't arrogance, it's ascension. This is you choosing to rise, not react. So instead of texting them back, you hit the gym. Instead of checking their stories, you build your own. Instead of crying over who left, you become someone no one can replace. Your life is your loudest answer. And the beautiful irony, they won't admit it, but they'll watch. They'll feel it. In every post you don't make, in every call you don't return, in every room your energy walks into without them. You want to be unforgettable? Then don't come back. Level up so far, they wouldn't even recognize the person they expected to beg. Let this burn into your soul. Revenge isn't getting them back. It's getting yourself back, stronger, wiser, unshakable. Number 3, break the pattern, don't repeat the cycle. When they expect you to beg, they're not just expecting words, they're expecting predictability, because they've seen your patterns before. Maybe in the past you reached out. Maybe you apologized just to keep the peace. Maybe you forgave them too quickly. And they remember that. That's why they assume you'll fold again. But not this time. This time you're not reacting. You're reflecting. And more importantly, you're rewiring. Here's a psychological truth. People treat you based on what they've successfully gotten away with. If they pushed your boundaries and still got your attention, if they ghosted you and still got your love, if they disrespected you and still got your forgiveness, they learned that they didn't have to change. You did. So now, it's time to interrupt the cycle, to shock their expectations, to do the opposite of what they're used to. If they expect a reply, go silent. If they expect access, close the door. If they expect comfort, give them consequences. Why? Because change isn't real if your reactions stay the same. You are not the same person they left. You are not the same version who tolerated breadcrumbs and begged for connection. You've outgrown your own pattern, and when you stop repeating what broke you, you start attracting what respects you. This is the moment where you stop living in emotional loops and start standing in truth. Marcus Aurelius said, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." Let the pain they caused become the reason you transform. Let the cycle they triggered become the one you finally shatter. You want to surprise them? Don't send a message. Don't leave the door open. Don't play familiar. Just break the pattern and watch how fast they realize they've lost access to a version of you they'll never meet again. Number 4. Be unavailable. Emotionally, energetically, and spiritually. They expected you to beg, to be available, to wait with your heart wide open for them to come back and pick you up like a dropped toy. But what they didn't count on was your absence, your silence, your refusal to play the same emotional game. Here's a hard truth. You become less attractive to the people who mistreated you the moment you stop giving them free access. When they can't reach your heart with the same ease they once did, they panic. Not because they suddenly value you more, but because they're no longer in control of you emotionally. And when you're no longer predictable, you become powerful. Psychologically, humans chase what's scarce. It's basic behavioral science. We value what we can't easily access. So if you want to shift the power, don't just go quiet, go sacred. Make your energy so protected, so elevated, that not just anyone can sit at your table anymore. Start pouring your energy into things that grow you, not into people who confused you. Read, work, reflect, meditate. Build a life so rich and full that their return becomes irrelevant, not exciting. Because if they can still reach you the same way they always could, you haven't evolved, you've just paused. As Epictetus said, no person is free who is not master of himself. That means you control the access now. You decide who gets to witness your vulnerability, your peace, your power. And the more you protect your space, the more people will realize they can't treat you like an option and expect to keep the privilege of your presence. Let them sit with their assumptions. Let them reach for the old version of you and find nothing but silence. Not out of spite, but out of sovereignty. Number 5. Remember who you were before they broke you. They expect you to beg because they think you forgot your power. They think you've become so attached to them, so entangled in the hurt, that you don't remember who you were before they came into your life. Before the confusion, before the emotional damage, before you started second-guessing your worth. But today, right now, I want you to remember. I want you to remember the version of you that laughed freely, that loved without fear, that didn't beg to be chosen. The version that had peace in their soul and fire in their eyes. That version isn't gone. It's buried under the rubble of someone who didn't know how to treat you. And it's your job now to dig them out. You don't beg when you know who you are. The reason they expect you to crawl back is because they think they've taken something from you that you can't recover. But what they didn't realize is this: your identity doesn't come from how they saw you. It comes from how you rise after they dropped you. Rebuilding isn't about changing who you are. It's about returning to who you were before the world told you that you weren't enough. And once you reconnect with that unshakable version of yourself, you stop looking for love in places that offered you pain. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." And that strength? It doesn't scream. It doesn't chase. It remembers. It remembers your value. It remembers your light. It remembers that someone else's inability to love you properly doesn't mean you are unlovable. So, when they reach out, expecting the broken you, the confused you, the desperate you, don't show up. Let them find silence. Let them feel the absence of the very person they failed to value. Because sometimes the most powerful version of you is the one that no longer shows up where they were once ignored. Number 6. Make peace with the silence. Don't fill it for them. When someone pulls away or disappears, the silence they leave behind is loud. It echoes with all the questions, the confusion, the pain, and most people, they rush to fill that silence with texts, with calls, with explanations they were never asked for. Because begging isn't always about words. Sometimes it's in the need to be understood by someone who chose not to understand you. But here's the power move. Don't fill the silence. Let it speak. That quiet, it's not empty. It's exposing. It's revealing everything they were too afraid to say. People who go silent are usually running from something: guilt, regret, responsibility. And when you don't chase, don't explain, don't reach out, you force them to sit in what they created, alone. That's when the regret begins. That's when they start feeling the weight of your absence. Because silence doesn't mean you're weak. It means you've stepped out of the game. And when you step out, the dynamic shifts. Suddenly, they're not being fed by your energy. Suddenly, they're left to wonder, not just what happened, but why you didn't fight for them. But here's the secret. You're not supposed to fight for someone who watches you suffer and stays silent. Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." So, when they expect you to beg, you go still, not passive, but powerful. You allow the silence to protect your peace. You let it separate those who valued you from those who used you, because the person who truly values you won't need to be begged. They won't leave you in confusion, and the person who expects you to beg never really respected your heart to begin with. Number 7. Let your growth make the loudest noise. Here's the truth. They expect you to fall apart without them, to stay stuck, to sit in pain while they move on. That's the expectation when they walk away, believing you needed them more than they ever needed you. But here's how you break their expectation. You evolve. Not out of revenge, not to prove a point, but because you owe yourself the version of you that exists beyond heartbreak. When someone expects you to beg, they expect you to pause your life. They expect that their absence will crush your self-worth. That's their mistake, because what they forgot is that your worth was never tied to their attention. It was buried under your own fear. And once you stop begging, once you stop waiting, once you start healing, you begin to build a life that reminds them they never broke you. Psychology proves this too. Growth after grief creates internal dopamine spikes. You start gaining self-esteem, confidence, momentum. And that glow? It's magnetic. They'll notice. They always do. Especially when the version of you that once needed them is now untouchable. So, work on your body, feed your mind, guard your spirit. Start that project, take that trip, read that book, speak less and do more. And every step you take forward without them is a message louder than any text you never sent. Seneca said, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it." Don't waste your time begging for love. Invest it in becoming the kind of person who never has to ask for it. Let your peace, your confidence, your elevation be so undeniable that they don't just remember you, they regret letting you go. Let your silence be the seed. Let your growth be the storm. Number 8. Let them watch you, walk away, and say nothing. This is the final shift, the one that separates those who repeat cycles from those who rise above them. They expect you to beg because they believe they still have a grip on your emotions. They expect a tear, a text, a crack in your silence. But instead, you give them something far more powerful. Nothing. No dramatic goodbye, no chasing, no second round of explanations. Just calm, just clarity, just a version of you that has made peace with what they never gave you, and who you no longer have to be. You want real strength? It's not in how loud you can shout or how many times you can plead. It's in how gracefully you can leave when you know you deserved more. It's in your ability to stop talking, stop fixing, stop justifying, and simply exit with your dignity intact. Because silence doesn't always mean you're waiting. Sometimes it means you've already moved on. Psychologically, this leaves a deep impact. When someone expects a reaction and gets none, their brain doesn't find closure. It starts spiraling. They begin questioning your feelings, their choices, and what they lost. And that emotional discomfort, that's the beginning of their regret. Let them feel it. Marcus Aurelius said, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." You don't owe closure to those who mistreated your presence. You don't owe responses to people who ignored your truth. And you don't owe access to someone just because they've returned. Let your silence be your signature. Let your healing be your goodbye. Let your self-worth be so high that walking away isn't painful, it's peaceful. And if they ever try to come back with half apologies, vague messages, or emotional baiting, you don't even have to respond. Sometimes the most savage move is choosing yourself without explanation. If you've made it this far, let me say this with full heart. You are not weak for feeling, you are not broken for caring, and you are definitely not a fool for loving someone who couldn't see your worth. But today is the day you stop trying to prove anything to anyone. Today is the day you stop explaining your silence, stop over-explaining your heart, and stop showing up where you're only tolerated. They expected you to beg because they thought you didn't know your value, but you do now. They expected you to fold because they believed their absence would destroy you. But here you are, still standing, still healing, still rising. And that, right there, is your power. You don't beg for closure. You don't beg for clarity. You don't beg for someone to treat you right. Because the moment you beg, you hand your power to someone who already walked over it once. And we don't do that anymore. From now on, your silence is sacred. Your peace is your power. And your presence, that's a privilege, not a guarantee. So when they expect a reaction, give them evolution. When they expect tears, give them distance. And when they expect you to beg, walk away like you've already won. Because you have. This isn't about being cold. This is about being clear. Clear about what you deserve. Clear about what you won't tolerate. And clear about who the hell you are when you stop chasing people who were never ready for you. If you felt this video in your soul, drop this in the comments right now. I will never beg for the love I deserve again. And if you're ready to keep rising, healing, and reclaiming your life through self-mastery and stoic strength, hit that subscribe button. Join the tribe. We're not just surviving heartbreak, we're becoming untouchable because of it. Your comeback starts now. Stay silent, stay grounded, stay powerful.